Hello, everyone. It is Suzanne Worthley back with another episode of Energy Unleashed with my co-host, Kim Hess. Hey, Kim.
Hello. How are
you doing?
you?
How you doing down there in Hotland? I'm up at the cabin and Kim's down in the cities.
Seriously hot.
And
99 today.
I'm in sweater and jammy pants because it's like cold up here.
I just can't. It sounds amazing. I want to be up there.
What is happening to Mother Earth, right? I mean, we are in this crazy, crazy time right now where our Earth energies are just insane. And literally, we're 3 hours apart from each other. And it seems like worlds apart energetically and weather-wise. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
This
So
is
we've
like
got so much
60
going on.
or 40-degree difference
Yeah.
is what we're going to land. That's crazy. But I also read in Colorado, they had like people stranded up by Pikes Peak or up on the mountains. They had like 8 inches of snow.
Oh, my Lordy. And then we've got Maui going on, and then we've got, still the fires in Canada. And I really think this is a tough time. On these podcasts, we usually talk about energy sessions with clients, and we're going to kind of generalize this one. This is a tough time anyway, I think, for many, many people. We are having so many struggles. The energy has gone so crazy since solstice through Lionsgate. 2023 Lionsgate was going to kick our ass anyway, which it did. I mean, in a lot of ways, good and bad, right? And I think these energies are going to really be pretty volatile until, through equinox into winter solstice. I think we're going to just have roller coasters. And I don't necessarily think that's going to change. I mean, I think intuitively, I feel like it's just going to be like this for quite some time. So
yeah, I feel the same way. I just think there's too much going on in the reality, like outside of my little world.
Yeah.
It's hard not to think that it's going to be a little bumpy for a while because there's a
Yeah.
lot of disclosure, a lot of stuff going on that just doesn't. It seems like you're in a sci-fi movie that you just want to like end.
Can't get out of, and there's no popcorn. I mean, it just never stops.
Right. Yeah. I just want to get out. That was
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I really want to bring up the concept too before we dive into this stuff and unleash the concept that we'll get into in a second. I really would like to bring forward that anybody that is listening, obviously I always take what resonates, talks what doesn't, but anyone that is listening that is more of a sensitive, more of an empath, more of a psychic sensitive empath, we are really being, I think, targeted. And I don't mean this nefariously. I just mean energetically. I think we're being derailed or distracted, or a lot of us that do really bigger holding space for bigger, awesome, beautiful work. Not that we're cooler or better. We just do that. That's what we do. We are being really diverted into crazy 3D kind of bullshit things. Like I was reading something this morning on Lisa Renee's site, and it's like, hey, distract you with issues with insurance. Me.
Yep.
Issues with legal stuff. Me. Issue with finances. Me. Issue with health. And I mean, it was like she was writing my entire life story of the last 3 years or 3 months, especially in this particular blog. And I think that this is actually, it is a kind of an attack. And I don't want to say, oh, be so scared because you're getting attacked. It's not like that. It's just an energetic diversion.
Yeah.
Because people that do really great energy work and people that hold the space for others and people who are here to teach and awaken, they get derailed because the so-called theys, the negative theys, the agenda of whatever they want to be for you, are really busy and really, at their wits' end, trying to divert and distract. So be careful of your own energy fields, even more so than even a year ago. I mean, be aware of your energy levels, because this is important times to stay fueled, right? In love.
Oh yeah. I've been struggling. I mean, I really have felt Lionsgate, well, from the summer solstice all the way through. It's been harder and harder for me to be grounded and feeling like I'm totally in my body. And so it's a lot of work right now to stay in a halfway neutral place where you're not taking everything in and empathy and all that's going on.
Which leads us into the subject of this particular podcast, which is actually caregiving. Many people, especially around our age, are finding themselves being caregivers in so many ways. We moved from being a parental caregiver. You have 3 kids, I have 4, and it has been years and years of raising children, caring for things. And now you've got that partner and, you're like, oh my goodness. And now you're sandwiched between your children and your grandchildren and your siblings and your parents. And if you're lucky enough to have parents, which we both are, gratefully. It's a lot of different kinds of caregiving. And I want to get into this a little bit because we'll let you unleash your situation that you just came out of with your mom. But it is a very what do I want to say? It's a tricky thing because you want to be there for them and you need to be there for them in beliefs, and yet it's very important that you come first also. So this is a very, very typical thing for an empath to get into. I am going to take care of everyone and everything, you know, I'm responsible for this. But let's zero in for, let's say, a caregiver on one particular thing. And can we use your situation just recently? Is that okay with
Yeah,
you?
that's
You
good.
want to
Yep.
just kind of give them a gist of what that was about and how you ended up being there?
Yeah, actually, my mom had been really ill earlier this year in May with sepsis. She got really sick, but while they were treating her, they actually found she had cancer in her kidney. And so she had her kidney removed a couple weeks ago. So I was back in Nebraska, staying with my mom and dad while she went through surgery and then helping for that week after, you know, with the cooking and, you know, just running errands and doing the different things that they needed. She was pretty good. Like she wasn't, she'd need help here and there. She started taking little walks, you know, so I would go with her, but she was pretty independent for like
Mhm.
her ADLs or her, you know, assisted daily activities. So it wasn't too bad. Like
Okay,
I don't want to say it was all consuming me because my dad was there to help, my sister was
great.
there, you know, so we had a lot of help, but
You had a lot of tag teaming going
yeah.
on. But
Yeah, but it is an
oftentimes,
interesting thing though to be in a reverse situation with your parent.
that's exactly what I was going to bring
Yeah.
up.
Oh, was it?
Oftentimes we change roles. You're taking the words out of my mouth. That's funny. So talk about that because we feel like all of a sudden I'm parenting my parent and they're acting like a
Yeah.
child. This is really kind of hard on the psyche. So what does that feel like and what does that do to you?
It was even before I got down there, I was trying to think of ways to take care of her. One of them was I got her some pajamas that would not be tough on her tummy area, you know,
Okay.
where the incisions would be, and what kind of food am I going to plan? Like what would be sound good after having surgery, you know, doing those things. But when she was in the hospital and really pretty out of it still with the anesthesia and the drugs and all of that, it was difficult as a child to see her like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though I knew she was going to be okay, I had a really good feeling. It brought up childlike feelings inside
Yeah.
of me that it was like, oh my God, this is my mom. Like,
Yeah.
and I felt really kind of helpless a little bit, which then again just throws you right into the 3D. What can I do? What can I do? You know, how can I
Mm-hmm.
help her out? Yeah, and it brought up a lot of childhood memories too, because my sister was really sick. And so, you know, when she, well, it's interesting. My sister had her kidney out as well when she was 4 years old. And so I remember her being sick and coming home from the hospital after 2 weeks. And it brought up some of the memories around that too. So it just resurfaces things, I guess, emotionally in that situation.
And 50 some years go by, and those memories are just like yesterday in
Yeah.
terms of how it affects the actual human body and emotions and mental field, which is astounding to me. And I think you made a really good point too. When we see our parent or our loved one, you know, in a hospital bed and their color isn't quite right and their energy isn't quite back yet, and they might be hooked up to things. And, you know, I remember seeing my own father one time when he did his heart surgery, and I came in and it was really weird to see my dad. He has never been sick ever, ever. And he wasn't even technically sick, but to see him hooked up and vulnerable like that puts our so-called sense of safe into a tailspin, which is so weird because you're perfectly safe.
Great.
But
Great. Yeah.
it totally turns back the time clock and it triggers things from childhood, which I think is so interesting when you're doing caregiving. And when we see them in that situation, like my folks are getting very slowed down now, 89 and 90, you know, they're walking, you know, with walkers and all kinds of stuff. And you got to, you know, push them out of this chair and pull them out of that thing. And it can be really overwhelming because I think here's the bottom line. And this is what I want to bring forward. It's overwhelming for two reasons. We get scared. Oh my goodness, how long am I going to have them? Because they're really kind of getting sicker or older or degenerating in front of my eyes or shutting down in front of my eyes. And especially for me, because I can watch their energy field. that's scary anyway. But, you know, I mean, for my work and my life, how I grew up, I'm very aware that everybody's going to die. I mean, that's like a no brainer. It's like, that's what I lived with being a mortician's daughter. Everybody's going to die. So there isn't technically a fear of my parents or whomever dying, but it's the process of watching them get closer to that triggers you. It's very weird. It's very
Yeah,
weird.
because I look at my parents as very strong individuals. And
Yeah.
so when you see them in a vulnerable position like that, you know, and especially after that infection that she had, her memory was, she was struggling. She was very foggy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was tough to watch because I was in the business of long-term care, and I know, like, when you start to have issues with not remembering it, it was like, oh my God, is this more than just the infection, or is this because of now the anesthesia? Is it, you just,
Yep. Your mind just
yeah,
goes.
just gerbil mind for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think ultimately what we're doing when we see all of that is we're subtly on a subconscious basis transferring fear for ourselves,
Mhm.
because then it's like, oh my goodness, if I don't have them, then I'm the adult in the family, or I'm the one, or now I'm going to get to that age, or oh my God, is that going to happen to me? And my dad is classic for this line. Just you wait. So we'll be up at the cabin and we, trot them up here, and he'll be in the corner, and it's like, trying to get out of the chair, and we'll all give him a hard time. And he's like, just you wait. And I say to him all the time, I don't have to do that. I don't have to have that happen to me the way
Yeah.
that you're doing it, because this is all personal choice and how you take care of your energy field, which indeed creates the blueprint of your body, etc. So every time he throws down that just you wait, I get a little offended in that, wait. And so then I want to get really stubborn and go, just you wait, because maybe I'm not going to do that. And it's
Right.
just this little weird dialogue that our whole family seems to have. It's like this funny little banter, but
Yeah.
it's really not funny because it is scary.
Mhm.
Someone wants someone else to be as sick
Sorry.
as them, or someone else wants someone else to be as not sick as them. We do these really weird alignments. It's allegiances. It's strange. I mean, humans are weird, aren't we?
So my mom is like, she goes, it just really sucks getting older. You
Yeah.
just need to know this. And I look at her, I'm like, well, but I'm not that old yet. In my head,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like, I say 29, but really 39.
Or 49 if we're even lucky.
Yeah, I know. Shoot. Sorry, my fan is going and my hair keeps tickling my nose. I'm like, it
That's
itches
okay.
so bad. Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
to hear them say that, and like my dad is struggling with his hips and knees and having a hard time walking, and so just walking through the hospital with him, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like strengthen my muscles and do
Yeah.
more for my body so that I can actually hold my skeleton better.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it gives us, so there's some blessings in these caregiving fears of ours. I was doing the same the other day. I had a 3-hour appointment day with my mom for glaucoma. And again, she's 89 and has really lost peripheral vision. So she's walking like, a toddler, and where's the curb and where's this and where's that? And it gets a little panicky because first of all, you'll find yourself really frustrated, right? Because it's like, oh my God, just there's the curb, and you'll find yourself being short. And then it's like, where's your compassion? Stop that. Of course you have to be compassionate. And yes, I will always take you to your appointment. It's fine.
Yeah.
And yet it's like, oh, come on, hurry up and get in the car. You do all this mishmash of emotions and verbiage and words and judgments and non-judgments. It's all convoluted, and it's so weird to be able to kind of just step back into neutral and just go, okay, what's the underlying fear? And I say this in almost everything I teach. The underlying fear is that I'm not safe. The other underlying fear is my worth. And the underlying fear is my enough, because, oh my God, I'm not going to be safe if I can't see or walk.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my worth has gone down the toilet because I can't even see or walk.
Yeah.
And God forbid, there isn't enough of people to help me, isn't enough time, there isn't enough of anything. So we trigger those DNA original trinity of fears all the time when we're a caregiver. And remember, the person who you're giving care to is also triggering those. So with the parents, we had them at a cabin weekend at my brother's just a couple of days ago, and we're coming up against some challenges. And it was important for us to be aware of compassion, for us to be aware of if one sibling's getting pissy, take over, get that one out of the way, get the one that is not as fried right now to be in charge, or talk that sibling down in another room or whatever, so that there's some balance for caregiving. Because especially if you have the luxury of more siblings or more help or children or whatever can assist you in caregiving, if you have that, take that and take the time for you to be centered, clear, balanced, and filled as well, because the caregiver most oftentimes just runs out of the tank and empaths all of the fear of the person they're caring for.
You know, the other thing I found though was I went into control mode, which I haven't really done for a while. And so there was a point where I looked at my dad and my sister, and they're both like, oh, there she is.
Yep.
So I had to take that step back and realize that I was trying to do everything for everybody, not just for my mom, but like dictating what we were going to do next, what we were going to eat, what we were going to do. And I could just see it on their faces, you know, that there she is. I thought
she's back.
I know. I felt really bad.
Hey, but in some regards, that's a compliment, because it shows that there's been the other sides of you that haven't been that, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, controller mode is in all of us, as is in victims. So I think controller mode, when we're in a caregiver situation, is simply fight or flight. I mean, I got to make it through this. I'm going to fight through this. So I'm going to control the crap out of everything and everybody, right?
Yeah. And I was trying to be like helpful for my dad too, but and I didn't realize it was like bothering him, because he can do these things.
Right.
And it is his prideful way of, you know, contributing and helping. And so that was an interesting lesson during all of it too.
And pride, you hit on a really good aspect. I think that is something about caregiving, especially when we're having older parents and or sick parents. They will be very hurt inside if they get their keys taken away for the last time, if you tell them that they can't travel anymore alone or at all, if they aren't able to eat that kind of food or whatever it is, their pride can be so hurt inside. And I think these are decisions that we have to make as individuals on how much you have the ability to have that deep talk. Or are you the kind of family that ignores all that? And if you ignore all that, then at least be compassionate. But if you have the ability in your family and in your voice to be able to have those feelings talk, I think that that's important, because we do get scared. We do get hurt. We do feel minimized when we get things taken away from us. And I even know that, and I'm nowhere close to being 90. It's terrifying to think that you can't. It's that word, I can't any longer.
Right. And I know that you've gone through this with your parents when they moved into, you know, assisted living. And my dad made a couple of comments jokingly, like, well, we want you to know we can still take care of ourselves.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, wow, they really think that, you know, we're just going to throw them into a home for, you know, if they need to get to that place. Yeah. But they're still able to do a lot of what they need to do. And they're smart enough that they're hiring a few things that are harder for them to do now.
Yes.
You know, but that fear for them, I did not ever see that before. Like, you know, I just don't see my dad as being fearful of anything. And so I felt that brought a lot of compassion forward for me, and what it is to look on that other side when you're so close to maybe not being able to do some of the things that you usually do. So,
which I have experienced exactly what you said. You're looking at your parent, they were bigger than life. All of a sudden they're shrinking. All of a sudden they need care. All of a sudden you're doing way more, being the parental feeling. They're the child feeling. And you change all of these perspectives, and you get a little freaked out, because it's like, wait, you were my rock. You were my superhero. What's going on here? So when that happens to me in the last year and a half of this transition with my folks in caregiving and sharing caregiving duties with all the siblings, etc., it's also made me understand, my kids are probably going to be doing that with me. And my kids are seeing that with me already. And I'm only in my 60s, you know? And so it's funny, because you will notice that these tendencies just keep going down the generation, because that's how it goes, right? I mean, that's how it goes. And so I think it's really interesting to even have those talks, not with just the older generation, but also the younger, to keep that communications going and saying things like, for example, my kids, I can't do all this at the cabin alone. I do need a cabin weekend where you all don't just come and have fun, that you come and work, because the caregiver for me, even at this healthy age still, is that I can't do it all by myself.
Right.
Whereas, they always expected me to be superwoman too. So we set ourselves up in these roles on both sides of caregiving on who's the superhero. And how scary that is when they change that. I know when I got super sick with mercury, one of my kids said, Mom, it's just so weird to see you not being superwoman, because that's all we've ever known. And to see you sick is terrifying. And so it's important for me to say, and for me to be this sick is terrifying,
Yeah.
So communicating is really important during these caregiving situations as we transition with age and sickness and deterioration, et cetera. Yeah.
And I can't imagine, I was just thinking, you can, as a parent, end up taking care of a child again, depending on the situation, so that's a whole nother conversation of you're not switching roles. It's an old role, so I would guess you bring back, a lot of that, treating the child like a child, in a care situation like that. I haven't had to experience that, but I can imagine that's really, really tough too. As a
And it
parent.
all comes down to the belief system, I have to, I need to, I should. These are all the pressures underneath how we're attacking these actions, meaning I have to go take care of my mom is not the same thing as I'm choosing to. And this
and
is
I
the
really
different
had the
tool.
attitude of choosing to. I wanted to be there.
Right.
So if I felt like I had to be there, it would have been a totally different experience.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think it's also hard if you do have the luxury of having other siblings, that you're that one that's doing everything and the other ones are always getting off the hook. And then you've got resentment because the communication isn't clear there either. So these are the extended versions of caregiving within the family that is like, I'm always the one. Well, it's important to look at your belief system of, do you always want to be the one because you do it better and faster anyway? Is that your control?
Darn it.
Right?
Right.
So, maybe the brother doesn't do it how you think you want it done, but maybe it's just fine, so we need to possibly look at letting a little of that control mechanism go in those regards also.
Oh, for sure. I think it's healthier for everyone when you do that. So
yeah,
I could see it in my family. My mom was fine with it because she was kind of out of it, but my dad and sister were like, oh.
Yep. And lastly, with caregiving, I think what I want to round down with and bring a little deeper forward is that it's important for us to not jump into their field and feel their fear, and empath their scared, and empath their sickness. It's important for us to have our own space, our own quiet, our cutting our cords, our getting back into our field. And it's important also for us to be honest in terms of, I am not going to intentionally put forward fear in this. Let's say we're in a dire situation where somebody's really sick in the hospital or really suffering at the end of life or whatever. When we're in those situations, neutrality is the best thing, and staying present is the best thing, because the higher self always knows what it's doing. Right. And many of my clients that are caregivers, they're so stuck in the middle of that ego thing, that I have to, and I need to, or I can't. And I need to be there all the time. No, you actually don't. That higher self knows what it's doing. And it is important for you to bring a healthy you to the table to hold that space versus a depleted, resentful, tired, fatigued one, or you are going to take all that dis-ease on. And so these are really, really pertinent, things to think about when we're talking energy transference. So again, empathing is really important.
Like, think about how emotional, it's so emotional to be in that situation, but when you're exhausted, emotional, you're not coming to the table with any of the same skills or just that ability to be neutral, because the emotion takes over. It's a reactionary kind of behavior, and
that person needs their energy. They need you to cut that field so that person can have that energy to either heal or die. That is important, and both of those are valid. We get to heal or we get to die, and we get to do either one of those, and regardless, we still need the energy to do it. So when I'm caregiving and I'm sitting there and I'm exhausted and I'm coming in day after day, I had one client who was with his partner, and during hospice, and he was making this unbelievable trek And I mean, we're talking like an hour 15 to get there. Think of that. That's 3 hours of driving back and forth. And he would sit there for like 3 hours. So that's like his entire day, day after day after day after day. And he was so exhausted. My client was so exhausted. And I asked him, what is wrong with you doing that remote? What is wrong with you doing remote prayer and remote holding space and thinking of him when you're at home so that you're doing the same work in your mind and in your body, but you're not exhausting yourself? And he's like, oh, I never thought of that. I just thought I had to be there.
Right.
And especially in those situations when someone's kind of in and out of consciousness, if we're end of life, oh, I have to be there because I might miss it, and
Right.
that isn't how that works. It just
No.
doesn't, because you'll miss it because you just got up and went to the bathroom because
That
you were
happens
supposed to miss
all
it.
the time in stories. You hear my
Yep.
grandmother did that. She waited till everybody left the room and it was like, done.
Yeah, because that's their choice and they will
Yeah.
always choose. And so try your best, if you choose to, unravel that egoic, I have to be there and be in charge. I have to give them their meds. I have to be the one that's sitting them upright. I have to fix their hair. All of those things are from your end, and it is exhausting. And sometimes we can do a better job remotely holding space in our heart, which indeed happened for this gentleman. And he was just like, oh my goodness, I did not realize how exhausted I was just by caregiving.
Think about how that choice was taken away during the pandemic for people
Yeah.
in hospice or in the nursing home or hospital. You had to be remote. You had to figure out how to be connected somehow.
And sadly, it was done in a frustrating, fearful, feeling like I'm controlled and I don't have a choice way. But what it did show us is there's other options, there's other ways.
Right.
And people will find their way, because that's what we do. We come into this life alone, we leave this life alone in some respects, right?
Right.
With our higher self. And so it's important for us to maybe expand our mind a little bit when it comes to caregiving and really, really reevaluate what that word selfish means. Because I have to come first if I'm giving to someone.
Right.
Energetically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Any last words of wisdom from the mom scenario?
Oh gosh, I just am so grateful. And by the way, the prayer circle that she had around her was insane. People from like early in her life, family members, it was amazing how many people were tapping into prayer for her. Cool. Which is another piece of, I think, the caregiving that brings a little peace, for the person who's a caregiver, to know that there's just so much love in supporting, that experience. So that was really cool too, from a caregiver.
And again, you can do that remote. You can do it while you're in shopping. You can do it while you're gardening. It doesn't have to be in person.
Absolutely.
Nice addition there.
All right. Well, this was good. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you on behalf of Kim and I hope that this possibly touched you or someone that you know in terms of this, because we're all going to be caregivers in some regard throughout our life, and those roles always change. And so if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, maybe share, comment if you choose to. We are here for you as often as we can to share these ideas. And until next time, cosmic hugs.
Goodbye.